Well, let me tell you a little bitty story that just popped into my head about CIA.
Okay.
I'm a very junior officer, okay?
Okay.
And I'm working on a very dicey case.
Okay.
And the director, Alan Dulles,
Sure.
he's quite a guy.
He's got an airport named after him, doesn't he?
No, that's John Foster, his brother.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, John Foster Dulles was Secretary of State.
Duh.
And Alan accepted the surrender of all German armies in Italy
Oh, he did.
from his position with OSS
Yeah.
in Switzerland at that time, in World War II.
You know, that's where my father was with the 10th Mountain Division. In
Oh,
Italy.
really?
Yeah.
I'll be darned. Yeah. No, he was quite a guy. Anyway, the reason I'm telling him this is because he really impressed me. I mean, this guy is number one. He's a very big man. And common as dirt. We called him the Great White Father because he had white hair and white.
Right.
And was highly regarded by every case officer. Of course, I would never have a chance to meet him because he's ethereal. And I'm told, you've got to go over and talk to the director about this case. You know more about it than anybody else. I'm the equivalent of a second lieutenant at the time.
Okay.
He's the equivalent of a 4-star general.
Okay.
Okay. So in those days, our officers were scattered all over Washington, D.C. and its area. And I walked over to his building and got to the door, and they let me in. And I got to his floor, and his secretary said, Mr. McMillan, she knew I was coming. The director is waiting for you. I walked in, and Alan Dulles got up from behind his desk, came out, shook my hand, greeted me, et cetera, et cetera. And I spent about an hour and a half with him, okay? And went back to my office. I'd done my job. That's the end. 6 months later, just on a whim, Alan is going through all of the different offices just to say hello, just a presence. 6 months later, okay, walks into my office and says, Hugh, I didn't know you were here. That guy was fantastic.
Wow.
That was pretty flattering because everybody else in the office, my God, the director knows you.
Wow.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. A lot of experiences like that. Interesting. So where were you?
What's your favorite city?
Yes.
What is your favorite city?
Yes. Positively. People ask me, what was your favorite country? And my answer is yes.
Okay. Okay. Any?
Every country has its own personality, its makeup, its culture, etc., and they're all fascinating. Every place we went was fascinating. Little vignette from, I was telling you earlier, from our days in Japan. I was stationed in Tokyo, and two of my colleagues and I had to go to Hokkaido that's the northernmost island in Japan. And a beautiful place, by the way. I fell in love with it. And we did our job. We were up there for about a week. You can see what was then Sakhalin Island, which was Soviet territory.
Right.
You can see it from the banks. And on the way back, we were on a DC-6, and all of a sudden there's an explosion, and we think we're dead. And we were hit by lightning, which severed the antenna. In those days, the antenna wire ran from the cockpit to the tail. It was a wire. We don't understand this stuff anymore today. And the insulator was bouncing outside of my cabin. And it sounded as if the airplane was coming apart. And I looked over at Jim, and he was a former B-29 pilot, and he says, it's okay, we'll be just fine. So we landed. Let me tell you, the next day we were in the insurance office, and we quadrupled our insurance.
Yeah.
Because we suddenly realized it can all be over in about 2 seconds. Yeah, it was kind of scary. Yeah.
Did you spend much time in Japan?
Just short of 6 years.
Oh, you did? You were
Yeah.
that long there?
Oh, yeah. And My Japanese, I never got it down to the point where I could use it with ease.
Just arigato and
Yeah,
sayonara and
yeah.
sushi.
A little
It's all the
vignette.
Japanese I know.
Huh?
It's all the Japanese I know.
Yeah, well, that's about all I know now. Although, as I will every now and then shock some of our high school kids who say they're studying Japanese, and I say, "Nihongo ga hanashimasu ka?"
Right, right.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, another little vignette from Tokyo. The Soviets had proscribed lists of movies for their officers that they could not see. Okay, now this was not Dr. Zhivago, but it was something like Dr. Zhivago at a commercial theater. And Janice and I are standing in line, and I noticed a couple of young KGB people.
You could spot them?
Yeah, one of the oddities of the business, and I've
You can
never
just spot
figured
'em, huh?
Never figured out why. There's a huge reception at your embassy, his embassy, her embassy, etc. For some reason, off in one corner, all the spooks.
Oh, is that right?
We don't even know one another. We just gravitate toward one another from whatever
Really?
country. Yeah. Anyway, I recognize these two young officers of theirs, and they're standing in line for this proscribed movie, something they should not be doing. And I wasn't thinking. I just said, "Здравствуйте, как вы поживаете?" Their color changed to white because they thought I was a political officer. And that would have been the end of their careers if I'd caught them. And they spun around and said, "Oh, it's only you, Hugh." Yeah, why? What's the problem?
Uh-huh.
Yes. No, this is no way to live.
No.
No way to live. Another little vignette, a young pilot, Soviet, flew a MiG out to Hokkaido, and of course we tore it apart and talked to him for a long time. And we set him up in the States with an assumed name and got him a job and his own little profession, et cetera, et cetera. He'd been here for about 2.5 years, came storming in and said, "I can't take it. I'm leaving. I'm going back." "You'll be shot dead the minute you cross the border. You know that, don't you?" "I don't care. I just can't take this." "What can't you take?" "This democracy. What's the problem with democracy?" "Nobody tells me what to do."
Is that right?
This is a disciplined population. Thank God it's never happened to our people.
Wow.
Yeah. And this has happened several times. They simply cannot,
Free will is just.
yeah, it's an alien concept.
Well, he was born into it
Yeah.
in East Germany, surely.
Well, it's about 1,000 years old. It's a police state, has been since its inception.
Okay.
And here we have Mr. Putin, who's putting it back after Gorbachev pulled him out of the mess. And as far as I'm concerned, they're going back into the Soviet regime. It's terrible. Because the Russian people are really nice people. I had a chance to get acquainted with a number of them. And they want war just about as much as we do.
Right.
Not at all.
Right.
And their country was just devastated. Janice and I visited Russia in, I think it was 2002.
So you're a civilian then?
Oh yeah, I'm retired.
Yeah.
And I called one of my buddies who's still with the agency. He said, "Can I go?" I said, "Sure, we don't own you anymore." And we did a river cruise out of St. Petersburg, which is a fantastic city.
Is it?
Well, just incredible. Peter the Great wanted to have the Venice of the North.
Right.
And he drew a straight line from Moscow to where he wanted his city. That's an order. He didn't mean it that way.
Okay.
But in that system, so they built that road from Moscow to St. Petersburg in a straight line.
Uh-huh.
And there are a lot of human bodies in the soil.
Uh-huh.
Tough stuff. But the Nazis were so outraged that what is now Petersburg, in those days was Leningrad, that they had to fight so much over it and lost so many of their people. They destroyed the museums, just out of spite. Beautiful, beautiful buildings. The Soviets rebuilt them. Every teeny-weeny crack was replaced. And the art museums are just unbelievable. Moscow itself is a fantastic city.
Did Janice like it there?
Yeah, we were just on tour.
Yeah.
I was not in the business.
You were a tourist.
I was a tourist, yeah. And you may rest assured that I told just about everybody on that river cruise boat that I'm retired CIA, and if I'm not back on this ship by midnight tonight, call the U.S. Embassy.
What?
'Cause they still play hardball. But it was interesting. One of their officers and I were sniffing around one another in New Delhi, India, in Alexandria, Egypt, and in Ankara, Turkey, and we became friends. I'm trying to recruit him, he's trying to recruit me, and that ain't going to happen either way. But we became pretty good friends.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And he met us in Moscow. It's a long, long story.
Was he retired as well?
He too was retired. He and another retired KGB officer that I'd never met before met us at the boat and took us into town. We went to their apartments and had dinner, and they were just generous as could be. They gave my wife a nice porcelain something, and as we were looking around, Janice saw a teapot. She said, "Oh, that is just beautiful," and they pulled it off their mantle and gave it to her. And there's no way you can say no. They're just neat people. We have more in common than we believe. Yeah.
Huh.
Their sense of humor is very similar to the American sense of humor.
Is it?
Very similar. I can read a Swedish joke book and
Like scratch your head like, I don't get it, right?
what is funny
Yeah, right,
about
I know.
this? But everything in Crocodile or any of the other Soviet publications or Russian now, their humor is very similar to ours. And they'll take shots at their leaders the same way.
Alexandria you were in?
Yeah, and I was there at the wrong time. I was chief of the consular section, I was chief of security, and that was the 6-Day War. Have you heard of the 6-Day War?
Sure.
Okay, I was right in the middle of it.
So
and
was that
with the
69?
positions, huh?
69 was that?
And now 67.
67, okay.
Yeah, well, let me give you a little vignette on that one. About around the 1st of June, I can feel it's coming. Of course, I'm fresh out of India, and the old Egypt hands are saying, "You don't know what you're talking about, McMillan. It'll never happen here." And I said, "Okay, it won't happen here, but nonetheless, I'm chief of security, and we're going to get ready for it." Okay. I remember going home, I think it would be about the 1st of June of 67, and Jan met me at the door and insulted me by saying, "Good evening, dear," something like that. And I said, "I got to get rid of you and the kids." And she says, "What?" I said, "I've got to get rid of you and the kids. I need all of my brain. I don't want to have to worry about you guys."
Right.
If Ambassador Nolte doesn't say, "You're out of here, all dependents," you're going on vacation to Cyprus. Because and I mean now. And fortunately, the following day, Ambassador Nolte, whose credentials hadn't even been presented to Nasser yet, declared all dependents out. And I remember Jan was packing a suitcase. I said, "Never mind the clothing. If you need clothing, you buy it in Athens," because that's where they were
Like
flying.
Bamboos, go, now.
And you take all her slides, you take the art, that's what you take. Because that's irreplaceable.
Right.
Anyway, she and the 2 boys went off to Athens. Shortly after I said, now we're going to go back again. I'm skipping around.
It's okay.
When I arrived in Egypt for my first shot, we were on our way home on home leave. This would be 66. And when we landed at Cairo International, and we're going through the line, I have a diplomatic passport, so I'm okay. And as our suitcases come down the line, the custom person is putting C.I.A., 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 and I thought, good God, Cairo International Airport. it did not wear well. And we were met by a Lebanese consul, whom we knew in New Delhi, India, wonderful guy. And he brought a big bouquet of roses for Jan and got us set up in our hotel. And then we went to Lisbon, where we met Mary Lou and her daughter. We were taking her 9-year-old daughter, she's going to be our daughter, as on our home leave, because she was 9 years old and Lance was 9 years old.
Okay.
And Marshall was 6 years old. And we had a wonderful time in Lisbon. And my Aunt Nellie, God love her, I had sent letters out saying, I want a place on the water, I don't care what it costs. And my Aunt Nellie said, you can have our place at Sunrise Beach. And we stayed there for 3 weeks. And I learned a big lesson. I don't want anything to do with anything called Sunrise Beach. Sunset Beach is nice. Because from Sunrise Beach, we would look across at Vashon Island, and the people are still in their bikinis, and we're in our overcoats because it's freezing in the shade.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
That's why our house faces west.
Right.
Yeah. Just little lessons. Anyway, the War of '67 was pretty ugly and kind of scary. But I fortunately had gotten Janice and the kids, all of our dependents were now in Athens. And the Greeks were delighted because they had Papadopoulos at that time, who was essentially a fascist.
Right.
And they had, that Greece depends on the tourist trade to survive. No tourists were coming, none, zip.
I see.
Okay?
I see.
All of a sudden, the Middle East breaks.
Now you got some well-to-do Americans
And
coming.
all French, Brits, all of us.
Yeah. With nothing much to do, their
Yeah.
spouses are probably back in Egypt, right?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
So they.
But I remember my shipping officer managed to get a Greek sort of love boat. It had accommodations for about 100 people.
Oh, nice.
Okay, and I put all 776 of them aboard. We were sleeping on the deck and all that. And as we left Alexandria Harbor, we had a Komar patrol boat on either side of us, and on one of the Komars, this is the Soviet equipment, it's sort of a PT boat with a missile capability,
Okay.
sea to sea,
Okay.
or surface to surface, and 20 millimeter cannons and all that.
You were armed.
They were armed.
Yeah.
We weren't. We weren't. We were on a cruise ship. And as we're clearing the harbor, one of the PTs are waving at us, and the other one, they're tracking us with their 20s. And about that time, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life coming over the horizon was a U.S. destroyer leader. And the two Komars spun away and went back to
Is that
Alexandria.
right? Is that right?
Then we lost a screw, so we're operating on one screw, and we pulled into Piraeus, which is,
Propeller. Propeller.
yeah,
Yeah. Just
okay.
for the non-marine people, because you are a Navy guy. We know you spent a lot of time on Navy ships. I
No,
know.
I didn't.
I know it.
I didn't even have to pull it off.
On crew, right?
Stroke. Yeah. When we pulled into Piraeus, nobody was there to greet us because they told everybody, stay away.
Yeah.
And we were spirited out to our hotels, where our families were. A little sidelight here. When we're still back in. God, that time goes
God,
fast.
this one is so fast.
It's the, I just started talking.
Okay, I know it.
that
The
damn
clock must be wrong. So let's just take a little pause. We'll come right back to
Okay.
you're pulling in. Okay.
Sure.
Just do that real quick.